Hello, this is Kara from Lady Kara Tarot, and today I have something special to share with you. This is an introduction and flip through to the Sublime Thresholds Oracle. This is by Urania Press, created by Nitasia Roland. The Sublime Thresholds Oracle has a subtitle of Gods and Magic, and I will be discussing that more. I want to backtrack a little bit. This was given to me as a review copy by Nitasia. As you may know, I am incredibly enamored with her Sublime Thresholds Tarot, which has a wonderful companion book. These are, I guess, what's called curated art, sometimes digitally enhanced, but definitely classic artworks. Both of these artworks from the 17th century to the fin de siècle of the 20th century, digitally enhanced, designed, and aligned with the archetypes. That's the Sublime Thresholds. And I have raved about Nitasia is not just a trained artist, but also a poet, and her writing style is incredibly engaging and resonant for me, in addition to her choice of imagery. This was my introduction to her, although some of you will know her from her other works. And then shortly thereafter, after getting that, the Chimera Tarot by her came out in mass market, which focuses exclusively on the artwork of Odilon Redon, and as someone else pointed out, seems to be focusing more on his earlier sketches, because later in his career he used pastels and more color. So I'm a fan. I am an unabashed fan of Nitasia Roland. So she very graciously sent me a review copy of this. Much like the tarot, it has a hard box. Voices from the Temple, where ancient divinities and archetypes blend magic, ritual, and mystery. This is the first edition of the Oracle, and I was very lucky to get one of the very last first editions of the Sublime Thresholds Tarot. Sublime Thresholds Tarot is still on Kickstarter. While they have met their goal, it's still open on Kickstarter, or it can be pre-ordered on her Etsy shop, which is Urania Press. Voices from the Temple, where ancient divinities and archetypes blend magic, ritual, and mystery to embody the mythic self. 78 oracle cards and interpretations written by Nitasia Roland. It is technically a 2025 deck. The etymology of the Latin word sublimus comes from the preposition sub, up to, and limen, threshold. And of course, you'll recognize lemon as also becoming the word luminous. Tight box, and that's fine. Very. I had already opened this, so that's why that's broken. But it just came with a paper band. So let's discuss. This is broken up into gods and magic. If you wished to, you could consider this a major arcana and a minor arcana, but this is an oracle. It's definitely not a tarot system. There are 78 cards, but it's 31 gods cards, gods and goddesses, and 47 cards representing magical themes. She says, in a world that feels chaotic, stressful, and disenchanted, people are earnestly searching for meaning, connection, and experiences of the sacred. An oracle deck that draws upon the ancient presence of the gods and the enduring themes of magic offers a doorway to embodiment of the timeless and the sublime. The cards are a linen finish. The back of the cards matches the back of the Sublime Thresholds Tarot. The cards are not the same size. This is the Oracle, the Tarot deck. So it's not exactly the same. Red leaves on the Tarot and green leaves on the Oracle. The Tarot is a little bit taller and the Oracle is a little bit wider, about 1/4 of an inch difference in each. So it would be difficult to put them together and use them as one large deck, and I wouldn't use them that way anyway. It's worth mentioning that she did have 10 oracle cards as part of the Sublime Thresholds Tarot. The structure of those is different, however, because the structure of those echoes the structure of the tarot, which has a word and a concept in Greek, a Greek concept and a sublime code or a word, a theme word. That is what the tarot has. Now, the oracle has just the word, the god's name, or the magical concept. I'm reducing what she says here about the gods show themselves to us in forms that we can relate to, things in our culture, and so we must look around for those symbolic connections and synchronicities. She definitely considers that the god cards are a major arcanum of sorts, and they're archetypal forces alive and available to connect with us. These come from a wide variety of cultures, from ancient Persia to pre-Christian and Christian, and with Celtic Druids, Zoroastrianism, Assyrian, Hebrew, Greek, the Pythia Oracle, Mysteries of Eleusis, the Hittites, the Celtic Druids, Old Britain, Italian Mediterranean households. And then the magic has Sublime Thresholds Oracle is a living pantheon and a bridge between mythic imagination and everyday life. The aim is to help bring forth potential understanding from the subtle depths of the unconscious to explore or expand upon. I create decks from an animist, poetic, and cosmic worldview, and the Sublime Thresholds Oracle is enthused with spirit and is muse-inspired, encouraging inspiration, regeneration, conscious expansion, and evolution on the soul's path while finding resonant connections. And I think any of you who know me know that I don't work with gods other than as historical archetypes, and that I'm not, I don't practice magic per se, or at all. I don't, so in some ways you might think, well, this isn't my bag, but it is the resonance and the poetry of her vision and the evocative lucidity of her writing, which attract me so much to all of her projects that I have worked with. She does have a wonderful little, now this is a little guidebook with tiny print. So, but she has about a page and a half on magic in the West. And this is really very interesting, where she talks about ritual incantations, protective magic, banishing evil influences. And she has an interesting final phrase in this section. And across cultures, malevolent sorcery was forbidden and punishable. She notes, and I just think that's an interesting and an important wrap-up. She says you can find the names and dates of all the paintings included in this deck on her website, uraniapress.com, Oracle Deck Artwork. So as you can see, the book is broken up into the welcome and introduction, which I was just reading parts of, including Gods and Magic in the West. Then we have the interpretations, which are broken down into the ancient gods and the magic themes. She does have traditional tarot spreads. And then about the author. This is her own independent publishing company, Urania Press. She has the Starlore Astronomical Tarot. First it was Tarot Emblemata, 2022. Starlore Astronomical Tarot, 2023. Tarot Emblemata Chromata, 2024. Astronomia, Planets and Asteroids, Oracle, 2024. Sublime Thresholds Tarot, 2025, and now in its second edition currently. Tarot Chimera from 2020 was sold out, but it is now in mass market available through Wiser Books, Wiser Red Wheel. And then this deck, the Sublime Thresholds Oracle. So I'm going to go through the cards, and I will eventually shuffle these together. I'm keeping them separate now for the walkthrough. I keep separating them and putting them together and separating them and putting them together. So let me set the magical ones aside first. And I'll just go through these. Classical nudity warning. Gilding on the border edges and the titles and gilding. Astarte. Let's look at that. I'll be just randomly. Astarte, an ancient Near Eastern goddess, is closely linked with the Mesopotamian deity Ishtar, Inanna. She was worshipped through antiquity in the ancient Levant and among the Canaanites, Phoenicians, and within Egypt. Adorned with a crescent moon headdress, she is connected with lunar cycles, may be called upon for particular feminine forces to infuse the senses and abilities such as sensuality, erotic power, desire, nurture, sovereignty, fertility, abundance, the cycles of life and death, with the idea of respectively balancing harmony and the life-giving and war-bringing powers of creation and destruction. Some may seek Astarte for sexual healing and vitality. You may connect with her energy as a fierce combatant, which might aid you in asserting your needs and desires in right relation with others in your circle. I'm going to read Urania because she chose this as the name of her company, so it must have a specific meaning, deeper meaning for her. Urania, muse of astronomy and constellations, daughter of Zeus and Menmosphene, and great-granddaughter of Uranus. Outfitted in a dress embroidered with stars, she lifts her eyes to the starry heavens, ever infused with the gnosis that the pattern of destiny unfolds through the constellations and planets. She holds the celestial globe that revolves and interprets the sweetest music of the spheres. You may wish to learn astrology or astronomy and the foretelling of important life events and possibly even the future by the arrangement of the stars. Call upon Urania and ask this muse to help you point your compass towards which stars you are to follow and how to receive the guidance of the planetary energies, and she will grant you her celestial wisdom and the ability to compose poetry and verse inspired by the cosmos. So we can see both her interest in astrology and astronomy, but also her interest in poetry and verse reflected in this. Isn't that lovely? And finally, Zeus. So once again, if you know me at all, you know that I am not interested in calling on energies of the gods. It's not part of what I do. But I am interested in this both from an art history aspect, an historical, a social history aspect, and a religious history aspect. So these are definitely in my wheelhouse, but perhaps not in the way she's talking about calling on them or using them. And very much the same for now. The concepts of, now this is the gods, and these are the magic cards. And these seem to be concepts of magical work. And I will read a few of these too as we go along. I will read animism since she says that this is part of her structural, structure of putting these together. Animism invites you back to primeval existence, your birthright connection to earth and ancestors and numinous spirits from before time. Ancient beginnings and the sensual impulses of nature call you to open your heart and experience the soulful essence of every living being, animate or inanimate, which is alive with spirit. By welcoming the uncanny, strange, or weird spirit of a thing, you align with the unseen in an act of co-creation, dynamism, spontaneity, synergy, and reciprocity, drawing subtle energy from the depths for magical aid and mutual benefit. A totem, chimera, animal ally, shapeshifter ancestor, or natural object may come to you as part of your soul family, a spirit kin who exists beside you in both physical and spiritual realms, offering guidance. Through this symbolic communion, you cultivate germinating seeds of possibility, tending a fertile environment where visions, creativity, ideas, and relationships can inspire and take root. I have to say, I also just love the vocabulary aspect of this, of learning new words and concepts. This is what she's chosen for the cover. Devotion. Interesting that she's using that for divination, because that's an astrolabe in her hands, I'm pretty sure. Which would have been I think a navigation tool, but by using the stars for navigation. So those are the magical cards. So I think I'm going to do sort of an Arcana-Battle with these. I'm not going to shuffle them to do this. I'm just going to lay them out. And again, I'm not going by what it says. I'm just going by the image that I like best, removing the image that I like lesser of the two and replacing it very quickly. And instead of leaving two, I'm going to leave this one, and then I'm going to choose one of the magical cards. Oh, interesting. Okay. Some of you know one of my cats is named Muse. She was actually named after the Muse Cat tarot deck. So, Proserpine, the rainbow arching over the entrance to the underworld symbolically reminds us that even during our darkest times and deepest emotional hurts, there is prismatic color and inspirational light available to brighten our sovereignty, so that we may look within, claim our inner power, and understand that we have rulership over the dynasty of our beautiful life's domain, just as Proserpine Persephone gradually adjusts to her destined role as queen of the underworld, embracing both shadow and renewal, so she can rise to the surface and walk the gardens of her personal Eden, bringing spring to the land. Proserpine descends into the underworld to walk the twilight path between loss and rebirth. Call upon her when you need courage to face your shadows, trust in the cycles of change and metamorphosis, and claim the throne that balances darkness and light, aligning your inner winters of grieving, remembering, and wisdom with your most radiant springtimes. How lovely. How lovely. And I didn't realize that Proserpine is Persephone, and that, of course, is the name of my dog. So, I have a black and white cat, but this is my black dog and my black cat. I do feel that this is important. The balancing of light and dark is very important to me. I actually said to someone, I was having a conversation about turning all of the tarot cards into some kind of positive meaning, and I was saying I really want my decks to have both light and dark in them, because life has light and dark in it. And then the person kind of clapped back about non-duality. But at any rate, I do. I personally think the cards were created dualistically, at least the tarot cards were, and I think most of our historical mythology is dualistic. Even if the religious viewpoint is not from that particular culture, usually most of our fables, our mythology tends to be pretty dualistic. So anyway, and then Muse, I will look that up. Orpheus's head continued to sing even after death, drifting upon the waters of eternal inspiration and vision, grasped and held by those of us who need to remember that even when we feel broken, silenced, or cast aside, the voice of the muses and the music of the spheres resounds through us, urging us to create and to dream and to, quote, trust in what is difficult, quote, as the poet Rainer Maria Rilke related. Here is your message to keep the currents of revelational creativity alive by either connecting to the 9 muses, radiant daughters of Mnemosyne, goddess of memory, radiant daughters and Zeus, or by being inspired by an artist, poet of inspired words, or thinker you know. And that would be, for me, that would be Nitasia. I do think she's, I do think she's a poet of inspired words and a thinker who I get inspiration from. Continuing now. Take the time to read or write epic myths, comedies, tragedies, and erotic stories revealing deepest truths and sacred mysteries. Record your dreams and aspirations while making your past memories meaningful for the present. Sing words of longing and desire for union. Write or read hymns to deepen your prayers and rituals. And don't forget to dance, calling your body into the rhythms of life under Urania's starry heavens. So both of these very fitting for me, of course, as a musician and singer, and having my acting background. This is the muses. The muses are something that I call on all the time. So this is honoring the light and dark as both within us and calling on the muses, taking inspiration from others. These are things that I've inculcated into my life. So these are very relevant to me. So I think you can see both how I would use it, obviously, as an oracle card. I will tell you in advance, and I will mention it in that video. I think I'm going to do a looking forward to March video, my plans for March. I am going to be using this oracle deck with my Alice Tarot by Nina. I was having difficulty thinking of what I would use because that deck has great fealty to the original drawings from that were used for Lewis Carroll's Alice in Wonderland book. And I was having difficulty figuring out which deck I would use, and then this deck arrived. I'm like, oh yeah, this will be it. So this will be an interesting addition to that deck. But so obviously you can see, for those of you who work with magic, or those of you who work with a variety of world god and goddess energies, this would have a great usefulness to you as well, and a different level of meaning and synchronicity than it would for me, although it has plenty for me in the way that I see it and use it. It's, as I said before, it's no surprise to you, if you've watched me at all, to know that my entree to this is art history and social history and religious history, and there's plenty of that here as well, as well as just the incredible selected artwork that she has so thoughtfully chosen for all of her works, as far as I can tell. So again, this is the Sublime Thresholds Oracle, Gods and Magic, with the 78 cards broken up into gods and magical concepts. So this is a almost squealingly delighted Cara from Lady Cara Tarot. Once again, thank you to Nitasia Roland for sending me a review copy of this beautiful deck. Thank you.